This experimental story poem is called A Picture. You were coughing and dirty, and your matted hair was teeming with lice, with nits and ticks and maybe fleas, but mainly and essentially with lice. And I didn't know who you were, but it didn't matter. And they told us not to call it the hotel, so we called it the hotel. And we enjoyed their really quite pathetic exasperation, and we played out a small forever in wonky brass bands that sounded like toothache. And as in the last inappropriate dance of a boisterous funeral, we shimmied to the dirge of still being. And then it all left, or felt as if, or as though, but we were still acting in that troupe while the camera rolled, and you and I broke all the mirrors and cut some of the other children. And it is all so long ago, and now we live in a bombed out church with thousands of birds that hop and peck and sometimes fly to and from the beams and roost in that gutted organ. You still somehow play, and I fall in love with you despite my repulsion or because of it, and you distrust me deeply, which I find reasonable, as I am fast growing suspicious of myself and whatever motives groan behind the knackered machinery of this unhelpful dawning of this maybe love. But soon there are children joining us from the mausoleum. They've taken to calling the hotel the mausoleum on account of all the sleeping games. And we find the drunken priest who is enthusiastically cremated by a rush of children dressed as animals. And the tree inside the church is bare but for all the birds who perhaps will leave us soon. And I realise I don't love you and that everything is sapped of purpose until you tell me that my parents had killed your parents, and that my parents had fought with such vicious and unremitting violence in killing your parents that they too had died soon after, and so we are both orphans of the same war. And still reeling, the camera shifts back to you and I, and we are both deliriously naked and charged with lust, intent on searching each other's bodies, possessed by the same determination with which our parents had killed one another. But instead we just laugh and chase and drink and yell up and up to tired rafters that none of this is sustainable, and we can only rely on sadness, and genitals are hilarious, and eat my flesh and bury the concept of your grace, and embrace the swirl and let me drink you. And what blights the clear lunacy of day with time and flecks the evening sky with mange and shit on me until I struggle to breathe. And let's hunt for the tiniest duck that is not a duckling, and let's wrench our likeness from paint that leaves the body and leftover beetroot soup. And never mind the soup, I finished the soup, and God loves the sun, the open anus, and such is such a life. And we uncover berries in the snow behind the church and greedily chew and swallow and chew and swallow and spill until our chins are black with blue juice. And we climb trees to heckle the sun and retire for stale blocks of cheese and bread. And through the hole where a window once was, we observe the dark as it falls, like a spent and panting dog collapsing down to the beaten earth below the tired rafters. And I leave you to sleep and wander down into the cold of what was maybe the north transept of the church, or maybe this was never a church. But now I notice all the children have gathered in a dimly lit hallway, dragging metal school chairs onto which they climb and try to hang themselves, and I push past the swinging dress of one of the few that has succeeded and call your name, and you obediently patter to my side until we both press forward and on, into and through these precociously weary citizens of youth. And we tell ourselves that we are free. And we are. We still can be, and we will. Just watch us as the camera draws back. We will leave before either you or I are condemned beneath a flag, and you say to me, scream to me, sing to and confide in me that the world is full of such ugly acts, that when you blink, it is like a camera seizing each injury, and then in catching these painful moments, you dream of leaving the world a less brutal proposition, and that will have been your achievement, to take away the ugly hurt that you have seen. But then I ask you what ugly is, and can it be without beauty, and you squat immediately above my bare feet and begin to piss, reminding me of love in some ways, and in other ways my feet are now just dripping, and actually their being soaked and my being in love are not separate, and I am no longer thinking this as the camera catches sight of itself in the only remaining mirror, above which a fresco of a sour-faced toad is missing both front legs. And it doesn't matter anymore, you say. It doesn't matter, because you and I will leave. They locked us up and we will leave. They died, or tried to die, or died trying, but we will leave before this lucid idiocy abandons us, and we are left to try on sobering coats, or to become serious and laden with jaded proverbs that we will shrug as dandruff from the scalp of a shared and uninspired fatigue. Silly me and dull tomorrow, feathered with these words and acts and perseverance, patience, goodwill, hope and love. And so before that happens, we will leave. We will climb a staircase that juts from the ruin of this church like a white scythe that is the lower jaw exposed by rain and dirt, and you and I will climb stepped pegs of teeth out of here to that restful height. A house imagined and drawn upon the sky that is welcoming, a kingdom open to birds, orphans and fools, and yet we shiver at the bottom step, clutching ourselves as change moves between us. And you fall in love with my former self, and I will kill you in a fit of self-defeating jealousy, and I will kill you and our unborn child, and then when I am perfectly sure that you have left, I take your picture.